All right, so now we're live. Let's see if I got the link now. All right. So the YouTube page for the link is here. That's the link for the live stream. So let's just start sharing that on our social media, and then when we're all good, then we'll start it off.
Yeah, give it like 2-3 minutes
Oh,
into it.
Yeah. And of course, on the thumbnail, because as always, don't know why it does that.
oh shit! That's not what I wanted to do. Oh, well, it's kind of what I wanted to do.
Of course, on the thumbnail, because as always, why it does that?
Oh, we're live, aren't we?
We are live. We are.
I just realized
That's what
that.
I mean by starting the broadcast. We're live.
Mm.
All right, so you guys are going to get some Facebook and Twitter notifications in a few seconds. All right. You guys should have gotten a few notifications. All right. Why did Mike add insult me to the chat?
Probably because he wants. Oh crap. Probably because he wants feedback.
That's true. Well, I mean, isn't Bermuda like on?
Yeah, he's on his way to Boston.
Yeah. So. Tag to post.
Sorry, I had to delete it.
That's fine. We'll just wait a few minutes and then just keep on sending it to people, and then we'll officially start off. We'll just find some people to send this to.
I'm gonna have to give Justice a little bit of an introduction, and Mike as well when he comes in.
Of course.
Actually,
That's the
Michael-
idea when we first start.
Mike will have to wait. 'Cause
What do
he's gonna come in the middle of.
What do you want me to say in the introduction?
Like your name, like where you are, where you're from, blah 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 blah. Basic
What
stuff.
about like your basically just like your inner interview, like just explaining who you are because it's our
Correct.
second time doing this and your first time on the podcast, so. Oh, look who joined!
Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to stay long, but I'm glad to be here, guys. Sorry about this.
How long can you be on here for?
This guy is taking forever, so we'll see what happens. But
Wait, are you at the barbershop?
I am at the barbershop.
Are
Keep
you
in mind
outside,
we're live right now, guys.
outside the barbershop right now, aren't you?
I felt it important to be here, at least for the introductions, to make sure that that we're all here together.
All right, so are we good to start then? Because I'll
Start it
right.
off. Start it
I'll
off.
start it off. All right, starting in 3, 2. Hello, everyone. Welcome again to the ATE podcast. Second straight week we're doing this. I am joined here by 3 other members of ATE, 2 who are doing their first ever podcast with us, alongside Mills and myself. I'm going to introduce you guys to Mike Edwards and Justice. Now, these guys have been in ATE for as long as we have when we started it. So before we go into our podcast, I want to give the floor to them and let them introduce themselves. Mike, why don't you go first?
Well, thanks, guys. My name is Mike Edwards. Founder of ATE. Honorary brother. Shout out to these 4. But basically, like Gio and Mills, so properly said it last week on Saturday. We basically started this movement roughly about, I want to say 7 years ago now, and we've basically been rocking with it ever since. You know, I was the first one in the group that started passing out mixtapes, started making songs. You know, Justice remembers being there in my basement, like we was out there, man. So,
yeah.
you know, we've come a long way. You know, we're in the studio now. We're recording. You know, I got songs out. You know, check our SoundCloud, SoundCloud.com, ATE Bosses, and you know, we've gotten a lot of positive feedback, and we're moving in the right direction. So, without further ado, I'll let Justice take it off.
Justice, I am another original ATE member. Shouts out to E Free. I'm a big sports fan, always have been, love basketball. I really love all sports, but I truly do love basketball. Just, you know, just like these guys, just finishing up school and trying to make something of myself. So there it is.
Amen. Amen. Getting that degree, brother. Getting that degree. That's what matters the most.
I just want the world to know we are all founding members of ATE. Like this, this is probably like the core 4 members.
Yeah, I was just about to say the core 4. Yep.
Yeah, because if you want to be realistic, back when we first started, Mike and Justice were always going back and forth to each other during rap battles during those deep series threes. Not gonna forget those times, St. Anthony Tides for sure, man.
Oh man!
I was literally just telling someone in Free yesterday while I was on my cafeteria duty about that exact moment.
Yeah. That was my end of my freestyling career because Justice was destroying me the first 2 rounds, destroying me, and so I'm like, you know what? No, we're not playing nice anymore. And I whipped out every insult in the book, used his name as an acronym for something I won't repeat on air, and we ended in a virtual tie, and that was my end of my battle rapping freestyling career. I was like, I'm going to the booth, man. Forget this.
Well, I'm glad that after that incident that happened with that 3, we became really good friends and formed a formidable bond, made a really, you know, incredible group of men that is ATE now. And now we're here, you know, making moves, and our second podcast, but first ever podcast with at least, you know, 2 other founding members. And it really is an honor to work with you guys. I gotta say that before we start off with this podcast today.
Amen.
Likewise, dog. Likewise.
Let's get right to it. NBA talk. The reason why I'm wearing this hat is because we're talking NBA, and let's start off by talking about the Eastern Conference. Cavs, Raptors. Now, let's just say this is almost like varsity playing JV. The Cavs have been whooping the Raptors around the first 2 games of the series, and it just seems like everything the Raptors can't do, the Cavs can do, and then some. Fantastic passing, LeBron being LeBron, and Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan being cold as ice. Now, with that said, my first question to you guys is, and we're going to start with the Justice here, if completely healthy come finals time, are the Cavs the NBA champions?
100%. If the Cavs are completely healthy come finals time, there's no doubt in my mind. I don't think LeBron's going to lose back-to-back titles. Back-to-back, I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's playing too well for that to even happen.
All right, I'll leave the floor to whoever wants to answer that, Mike or Mills.
I'll take it.
I'll
take it. So the Cavs have been running through the Eastern Conference, literally been destroying everything in their path, and the Raptors, if they're lucky, will win a game at home. But the way that they've been playing, I highly don't see it happening. I honestly think that the Cavaliers have as good a shot as they ever had to win the NBA title. That said, I believe if they face the Thunder, they will beat the Thunder in 6 games. However, if they face the Warriors, they will lose in 7 games. Fully healthy, I don't see how the Warriors, you know, end up losing after a 3-9 season.
Yep.
So, you know, with respect to the Cavs, you know, they've been phenomenal. You know, they've definitely put, you know, a lot of people, you know, into quiet mode as far as if they can go as far as they did last year. And, you know, the best basketball that we've seen this year is yet to come, guys. Definitely.
All right, so I guess I'll take it away. You know, all 3 of you guys know I am a diehard Cavaliers fan. I have been since 2002 when I was watching the end of Jordan's career, and we had Big Z up on the TV, and that was my idol, you know? Like, that was my guy right there.
Big Z, oh my gosh.
So, fully healthy, do I think the Cavs are a championship caliber team? Of course I do. But it depends really on who they're playing. I think Mike really hit that point very well, that if the Thunder are the team that the Cavaliers are playing, they can win it. They could possibly, I don't know if they'd sweep it. They could take it in as at least 5 games. But I do also think that if the Warriors are the team that the Cavs are playing, that the Cavs will have a very difficult time passing that threshold of a championship for Cleveland. With that said, I think where the strength for the Cavs have been this particular postseason has been their down low post game, their in the paint plays, and their threes for the first 2 series have been on. Not so much this series against the Raptors, but that can change within 1 game. You guys know just as well as I do that shooting is hot and cold.
I think this is the year the Cavs take it. And before I have anybody else rebuttal me, I want to briefly explain something. Last year, the Cavaliers did not have Kyrie Irving. They did not have Kevin Love. Now with a full season under their belt, a head coach that actually goes after the players and gets the best out of their players.
Fact, the change in head coach is crucial.
They have found a system that works for every single player of that big 3. LeBron always spaces the floor, gets to the rim almost every single possession. Kyrie Irving shooting a lot better, and Kevin Love is actually getting some movement in the post. And this team is working like a machine. And while you could say the Warriors have had possibly the best year and a half of any basketball team in NBA history, the problem with them is if they play small ball and you get an athletic big on them like Tristan Thompson against Draymond Green, that could cause some problems on the offensive rebounding boards. And if you get an offensive rebound with LeBron, Kyrie, and Kevin Love,
it's a dunk.
That's like a very big 3-headed monster to go up against. I don't think the Warriors have anybody that can have an answer for LeBron. LeBron won 2 games by himself with that same Warriors squad. So you got to give a full Cavaliers squad against the Warriors this year, and a team that's been destroying the Eastern Conference. I don't care what people say about, the conference is weaker with talent. The Warriors played the Houston Rockets, who were a big mess. Then they played Portland, and they struggled against a team that has nobody in the post. And now they're struggling with 2 athletic bigs and Steven Adams and Enes Kanter. I just feel like the Cavaliers have it this year. LeBron's not going to go 2 straight years without losing a final, like Justin said before. But
I honestly think, though, the biggest difference is the coaching.
It is.
Last year, when you watch the Cavs, David Blatt did not have a system in place. The Cavs really were just playing those games really with just the talent they had. And they were winning because they had a lot of talent, but they did not have a system in place. If you noticed, in the finals last year when LeBron James wasn't on the court, the team was shooting 17%. That's awful. That's like forgetting how to play basketball at that point. That's got awful. Now under Tyronn Lue, when LeBron's not on the court, the Cavs are at 48%. That's good basketball. They're playing good basketball with their second unit, and that's going to be the crucial difference between this year and last year.
To add some color to that, Justice, great points, and another strong point to make when you're talking about the Cavaliers is now they like playing with each other, and they like playing for that coach. You know, Tyronn Lue, whatever he has said, he has asserted himself as the definitive, leader coach-wise of that team. Yeah, it's LeBron's team. Yeah, it's going to run through LeBron, Kyrie, and Love. But at the end of the day, Tyronn Lue is accepting responsibility, and he's calling the game that he wants to call. That's the bottom line.
And he's calling a lot better plays. There was so many cases last year where you heard J.R. Smith say it, LeBron say it, Kyrie say it. Oh, David Blatt threw that up in the huddle. We were like, what are you doing? And they scratched the play, give it to LeBron, and let something happen because it was he just didn't know what he was doing. So I think Tyronn Lue's really got that down right. Yeah,
and something I noticed is you can tell their chemistry on the court is a well-oiled machine. It's so fluid. The way they pass, the way they move, they cut in and out of the lane, the shots that they take, they're not ill-advised shots either. These are high-percentage shots that they're taking. They're shots within the 2-point range and also behind the arc that they're hitting. And they're finding the right guys to take the shots. They're not letting LeBron go in all the time. Like, they're not just saying LeBron here, be our savior. Like that's not what they're doing right now.
They're playing the NBA version of Kansas basketball. It's like it's ridiculous.
All
It's
right,
like,
guys,
like
I
Kansas
actually have to interject because I have to run. But yeah, these guys will have to. You guys will take it over. All right.
See you later, Mike.
Enjoy your shape.
Hopefully we'll see you later,
All
Mike.
I'll be sure to join back in as soon as I can.
All right.
All right.
Well, that was Mike. Hopefully he'll join us later.
Yeah.
But back to the Cavaliers and Raptors. The next question I want to ask you guys is that recently, this whole entire series, it's been LeBron attacking the rim almost every single time he's touched the ball. And this whole entire year, LeBron has had some shooting woes. So with that being said, do you think LeBron's attacking the rim more because he's afraid to shoot, or just the fact that they're playing so good basketball, he's getting to the rim too easy to not, pass up the opportunity?
I think right now, LeBron knows that he is the leader on the court, and the example that he has to set is a hard offense and consistency. And with that said, I think the way that LeBron has played, I was watching last night. It seemed like every play he was down in the paint, and if there was a guy open on the wing, they throw it out. Even Jeff Van Gundy and the guys last night on ESPN, they were saying that his passing this postseason has been tremendous. The outlets he finds, the lanes that people cut, are absolutely perfect for him to set up. And sure, has he taken a lot less shots? Yeah. Is it because of a deterioration in skill? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not LeBron James. I can't tell. I've never been able to shoot a basketball for my life. But I can tell you this. The game that he is playing right now is the necessity that the Cavaliers need. They need someone else down there banging for rebounds with Tristan Thompson and Kevin Love. You can't have Kevin Love always consistently down there based upon previous injuries and the fact that he has been shooting the ball very well over the past month.
Honestly, I find it funny because 2-3 years ago, we were all talking about how LeBron shoots too much and now he needs to get in the post. And now he's in the post and we're asking if he has shooting woes. Like, the man's got a shooting percentage of almost 60% right now in the playoffs. I think LeBron is taking the shots that fit the flow of the offense to put his team in chance to do well every single game. It's not like last season where LeBron needed to have the ball in his hand every single play, either taking shots or trying to make every single play. The chemistry between Kyrie and Kevin Love, the ball is moving faster than it's ever moved before in Cleveland's history.
Agreed.
That ball is getting from one end of one corner of the baseline to the other in the blink of an eye. They're doing the extra pass, they're doing the skip pass. LeBron's in the And I think that all helps with LeBron being in the post because he's a nightmare in the post. And I think he realizes that. LeBron is one of the smartest basketball players to ever play the game. And he knows how to dissect you. If you look, the first series, not the first series, the series against the Hawks, they outshot the Hawks. They were shooting almost 25 threes a game and hitting them all. Now this series, different team, you got to go down low where there's no Valanciunas. They're attacking the paint. I think LeBron is just doing what he needs to get done in order to win this series.
And I remember when I first brought up this question before we went live, Justice, you gave me the look like, what are you talking about? Why would you even ask that question? And the reason why I put it in there was mainly because of that issue. A lot of people nowadays said that LeBron's shooting this season has been pretty bad. And early on, you could possibly agree with that. And I think, honestly, I have to 100% agree with you because LeBron's type of game is using the best of his abilities to his advantage. And now that he's got so many good shooters on this team compared to last year where most of them were hurt, he can drive to the lane, and if he sees no open lane to shoot, he'll kick it out to J.R. Smith, kick it out to Iman Shumpert, Kyrie, Kevin Love. He's got a ton of Arsenal shooters at his disposal. And I feel like the shooting doesn't need to be there when you've got so many shooters and you could just dunk it almost every single time because, let's face it, no Valanciunas, Bismack Biyombo's not going to stop him every single time.
No, not a shot.
No.
Not at all. Bismack Biyombo's got no chance against LeBron or Kevin Love for that matter. He's outmatched, and quite frankly, he's getting outplayed. This is this is not the Miami Heat they're playing with Amari Stoudemire in the paint. Like these are the big boys now. And I think the other thing is this: we've seen LeBron's game develop to the point where he's comfortable in the post. Before, you could make the argument that LeBron was afraid to go to the post. I guess he didn't have post moves in his repertoire yet, or whatever it is. LeBron is right now. He's in the post. He has unbelievable post moves. His footwork is amazing down low. His feet are a lot quicker down low as well, and I think that is one of the big key reasons why he's shooting such a high percentage and why he doesn't need to shoot all these jump shots. His shooting moves are talking about shots from the paint. He's only taken about 7 shots. I think last game I think this whole series he's taken 7 shots from outside the paint. So and he didn't make them, but 7 shots is not that much. So I'm not worried about it.
Well, with that being said, Mills, do you want to make a point?
No. Justice is pretty much like almost word for word said exactly what I was gonna say. That like with these shooters now on the team, the Cavs have been able to become a faster paced team, and that's in part because of the system that Tyronn Lue has now brought in. So we kind of covered exactly what I was just gonna say.
Okay, so with that point being made, let's go back to Toronto for a quick second. We know they've had Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan carry that team the whole entire regular season with a little bit of Jonas Valanciunas. Now with those two guards struggling and Valanciunas not playing, is DeMar Carroll going to take more of a X-factor role in the next few games? And if he does, do you think it's going to help Toronto maybe win a game or no chance? Mills, we'll start with you first.
I don't think it'll help. I mean, Carroll's a solid player, especially for the position that he's going to be playing. Like he's most likely going to be playing the forward position. But here's the problem: you've got a guy in LeBron James standing in the way of him being successful. He's probably going to defend him, or at least he's going to be facing up against Kevin Love regarding the position. They'll probably play him at the. I'm thinking it'll probably be the 4. Could he possibly make a difference and help out? Sure, but I don't think with the way the Cavs are playing and the way the Raptors have shown their resiliency, it hasn't really existed. So I don't think it'll make too much of a big difference, to be honest.
Personally, I think that DeMar Carroll is obviously an X factor on the defensive side of the ball. He's going to try and do his best job to guard LeBron, but to me, for the Raptors to even try to have a chance in this series, Kyle Lowry is going to need to make something, a free throw, a jump shot, a layup, something. I think Kyle Lowry, he was an all-star this year, and he has been literally invisible in the playoffs. They're getting more production out of Corey Joseph than they are out of Kyle Lowry right now, and I think that's the biggest X factor for the Raptors. Can Kyle Lowry show up in the playoffs and just do something to help this team at least not get blown out? Because it's bad right now. Kyle Lowry's a 20-point-a-night scorer, and you see him being invisible, they're losing by 20. They need him there.
And not just that, but he at halftime, right before halftime last night, he stepped out to go clear his head.
I was going to mention this
against the Raptors. Against the Cavs. So you got to be a leader on the court as well. Like Kyle Lowry is, like you said, Justice, a great point. He is an all-star player. This guy has so much talent and has so much ability to actually be able to play at such a high caliber level. Yet, I think it was on ESPN last night. He only had scored 7 points at one point.
It's his confidence, man. He's got to get his confidence back.
Exactly. It's a confidence. You know just as much from playing ball for so long. Like it's a confidence thing for sure.
Yeah.
But it's also a leadership thing. He's got to lead his team. Like he's the guard for a reason. Like he's there for a reason, and it's to bring a championship to Toronto and possibly go even further. But him and DeRozan really have to lead the team in multiple aspects, and being there for your team when they are down going into halftime is one of those points.
I think we need to, just to play devil's advocate, I think we need to give the Raptors a little bit of slack here, because keep in mind, this is the first time the franchise has ever been in a conference final in the first place, let alone these guys have not seen any playoff experience whatsoever. Comparing that to the Cavs, where you have LeBron being in 6 straight NBA Finals, which is incredible itself, leading this Cavaliers team full of superstar talent. And I feel like with Lowry, he needs to learn how to be a leader, and these experiences will turn him into either a leader or somebody who just can't make the next push without somebody else guiding him. And I mean, I think it was really upsetting to see him leave the first half because he wanted to quote-unquote decompress himself when he realistically should be trying to either shoot more jumpers and get out of the slump or pass the ball and set up more plays for other teammates. With that being said, the last question I have for the Eastern Conference stuff we're going to talk about this week is Toronto the Eastern version of Oklahoma City? Justice, I want to hear your thoughts on that one.
Not a shot. I don't think they're the Eastern Conference version of Oklahoma City at all. Honestly, Toronto was the number 2 team in the East this year, but I don't think they're a top 5 team in the league. I think Oklahoma City is significantly better than them. I think the Spurs, the Warriors, the Clippers, the Trailblazers, I think a litany of teams are better than the Raptors this year. They did get the win, so I will give them credit for that. But I do not think that the Raptors, I don't think they're the Oklahoma City team of the West. I don't think they have the talent. Like the Oklahoma City team this year is deep with an unrealistic amount of individual basketball talent. We're talking about even some of their bench players should be starting at other places in the league right now. Dion Waiters was a starter for the first 2-3 years of his career. So I really just think that the Raptors are overmatched, and I don't think that they have the talent to match OKC. And I do not think they're the OKC of the East at all.
Well, and what makes OKC so much different is you have two bona fide superstars in Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant who can make something happen at no question and no hesitation. They can do it. Sure, Kevin Durant will go on and off with his shot, but you know what? They're doing a hell of a lot more than Kyle Lowry's doing this play.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like much what we just said, Kyle Lowry has been absent from it, and he hasn't been able to take the pressure of these playoffs and extend upon it. Whereas Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook, they are performing at such a high level, and they stole Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals.
And now, speaking of OKC, let's get right into the Western Conference talk. Just a quick recap: Warriors versus Thunder series tied at 1 to this point that we're recording the podcast. Oklahoma City took Game 1, and then the Warriors responded with a blowout of the Thunder. But let's just hypothetically say the Warriors lose the series to OKC. Now, would you consider this year by Golden State, my apologies, 73-9? If they don't win a title, do you still consider it one of the greatest seasons of all time?
Absolutely.
But will you remember is the question.
Oh, it will be remembered. There's no way you can forget what the Warriors have done this season. If you're a sports fan in general, there's just no way you can forget. And what they did this season, besides winning 73 games, they didn't lose back-to-back games in a basketball season. That's unbelievable. That's astronomically that's honestly an anomaly. Like, to not lose back-to-back games in an 82-game season is literally dominating an entire regular season, which is me beyond my wildest imagination. I still can't believe that they did that. So whatever happens in this playoffs, whether they lose to OKC or whether they don't win the championship, I will not take anything away from the 73 wins that they got this year. They earned every single one of them. Especially with the fact that the Spurs were right on their tail all season. They were not comfortable with all the wins they had at all.
No, and Justice, I think if Golden State had seen the Spurs even more often, the Spurs would have been like right there with them, and the Spurs were nothing to slouch over. And you know what? I think the Warriors, in terms of this season being a failure, it's kind of hard to separate myself from this train of thought. But you know, I'm a huge Derek Jeter fan, and growing up in New York consistently, I always think, like, if you don't win a championship, your season was a failure. Your season has been a failure if you don't win a championship, especially here in New York. You know what though? That I'm a little biased in that regard. But to call this a failure, no. They broke a record. They're 73-9. You can't
They broke a record no one thought would ever get broken.
Exactly. That was the next thing I was gonna say. Like that '96 Bulls team was absolutely amazing. Hit everything that you could think of, and no one ever thought was absolutely possible. Yet here we are in 2016, 20 years later, saying no. Look at Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and the Warriors. They are doing exactly what we all said could probably never happen again. And they are making a point of it. That start that they got off on the season, what was it? They went like 36-0, 37-0, something like that. I can't remember what the number was. But they had an absolute great start to the season, and that even furthered the point where they were able to say, we're in the playoffs no matter what. We are the best team in the league.
Now, I want to bring up a team that can kind of be compared to with this, and I think Justice knows where I'm going with this. The 2007 New England Patriots. They made history themselves in the regular season. They won all 16 games. They won all the games they needed to win the playoffs except the big championship game, and they ended up being 18-1. We don't see that team as completely historic. We think of them as great, but they weren't great enough. And I feel like if the Warriors don't win the title this year, that's the exact thing we're going to say about this team down the line. We're going to say, yeah, they were historic in their own right during the regular season, but during the big game, they just failed. Well, and it's unfair because they're having I think, a better year when it comes to stats, having the first unanimous MVP in the league's history, and just having a whole entire different ball game compared to the rest of the league and a small ball lineup that's done wonders. Like, people tell you in the NBA, you live and die by the three. You can't live completely off the three, but yet this team has had two players who have combined for over 700 three-pointers in a single season. Two players alone combined, and they've made it work. I just don't know if it's all said and done that if the Warriors don't win the title, we still look at them as a team that's legendary.
I definitely see what you're saying. I mean, I don't think looking at a team that's legendary is with this Warriors team. I don't think legendary is the right word. This Warriors team is a legendary team. That Patriots team was a legendary team. They just weren't the greatest team of all time. And we always want that greatest of all time as sports fans. We want to see the one to surpass who we thought was the greatest, and then we want to crown a new champion. And we always like to put these ultimatums on great teams. But the reality of the situation is this: what the Warriors did was absolutely legendary, and it was absolutely historic. But you're right, if they don't win the championship, they're not going to be the greatest team of all time. But the second greatest team of all time in basketball history is not that bad. It's not that bad. So,
and you know what? Speaking of like legendary teams and what makes them so special, and if these great teams in the regular season actually pan out to be failures in their championship run, well, let's take a look at the '98 Yankees. Like, they finished the regular season 114-48. 22 games ahead at first place. Like, that is nuts over the Red Sox. I just happened to look that up because we brought this up. But you know what? If they had failed in winning that championship against the Padres in '98, we're not sitting here having this conversation. Well, we are sitting here having this conversation, but they probably would not be held as the best team.
I think.
Mills,
did you freeze up for a second there? You might have.
Yankees, '96 Bulls, '07 Patriots, exactly what we're talking about here. So I think where we need to focus on is exactly that point at which we consider it a failure. They had a great record. 73-9 is an amazing record. Mm-hmm. Patriots, 18-1. It's so hard, especially in football, to win 18 games.
Yeah,
it's very difficult. But with that being said, let's switch to talk about OKC for a quick second. We mentioned before that they have two incredible superstars in Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook, with a deep squad as well compared to recent Oklahoma City Thunder teams. But the style of play they do, if you watch a lot of their games, which we do, we notice that when it comes to a game time situation where it's late in the game, it's a lot of ISO plays. Now, with that being said, in this current NBA day and age, Mills, I'll ask you first. Do you think the Thunder can win with the style of play having two ISO superstar shooters? And since Mills is currently freezing up, I guess, Justice, you can answer that first while we wait for Mills to, clear up the air.
Usually I would say no, but the talents that the Thunder have are so phenomenal. Kevin Durant may be the best scorer the game of basketball has ever seen. This man can put the ball in the basket pretty much better than anybody ever. And Westbrook, yeah, Kevin Durant's got like 4 scoring titles already. He's on pace to get Wilt Chamberlain's record. You realize that, right? Like Kevin Durant's on pace for like the Wilt Chamberlain record. Like that's bananas. That's like it's. I really think that it's going to come down to what Westbrook does. If we get a controlled Westbrook, if we get a Westbrook that knows not to take 35 shots a game and only get 17 points out of it, I think that if Westbrook is under control and if Durant's playing well, that this team can make enough noise and really cause some problems and win the championship. But I think it really just comes down to Westbrook and how well Westbrook plays. Because we know what we're going to get from Durant, but we just don't know what we're going to get from it. Westbrook can either get you a triple-double and 45 points, or he can get you 8 assists, 10 rebounds, and 3 points on 17 or 20 shots. It's really a toss-up with him.
Right, and you know what? I think sorry about that, guys. I lost connection for a minute, but you know what? Russell Westbrook is kind of an interesting guy to focus on this OKC team. Like, here's a guy who obviously can play at such a great level and really compete and knows he's got that fire, and you can see it when he plays. His issue that he needs to make sure he keeps intact is specifically his turnover rate. Like, this is a guy who has turned the ball over a lot throughout his career. So he really needs to make sure that against this Warriors team who will make you pay, that he doesn't turn the ball over. And he's specific with his passes, that he makes correct shots, that he actually has the ability to follow through, grab his own rebounds. He needs to be on top of his game as a point guard and make the right decisions on the court.
And that's the thing about Westbrook we've mentioned before. He is the definition of a wild card. And with that being said, having a wild card superstar might not benefit them, but at the same time it could. Because, like you said, Justice, you can either get a triple-double with insane numbers and a very clutch performance, followed by 12 turnovers the next night. And that kind of makes you wonder if the Thunder could potentially, this idea has been pushed around the past few years, but I don't think it's going to happen. Possibly moving Westbrook to shooting guard, having maybe somebody like Cameron Payne lead the offense, because Westbrook takes a ton of shots. There have been moments where Westbrook will take more shots than Durant and have more misses than Durant takes shots in the game total. But another question that's been brought up a lot is when Scott Brooks was with the Thunder as head coach, they ran a similar system that they have when Billy Donovan has now. But with this style of play in the NBA where it's more team ball than anything else, it's almost, to me, it seems like it could be near impossible to have the Thunder win a title when not only do they have two ISO shooters, but they don't have a scoring option off the bench they can rely on, like a Jamal Crawford type of guy that can spark the second unit, or like a J.R. Smith type of guy. Do you think that's vital to a team's potential to win a championship?
Justice, take that away.
I honestly think that in order for the Thunder to win the championship, they're going to need to establish a consistent identity. And that's probably been my biggest thing with the Billy Donovan and the Scott Brooks. Scott Brooks, he was a good coach, questionable at times at substituting, but I really didn't see that much of an identity from the Thunder. This year, under Billy Donovan, I kind of know every night what the Thunder are going to look like when they're playing basketball. You know it's going to go into, Westbrook's going to take it up the court. If he's going to drive it. If he's not driving, they're looking for Durant in isolation. They can't find Durant in isolation. It's Ibaka for a three, or it's Cantor down low on the post. They got option 1, 2, 3, 4. You know where the ball's going to go, and they're just better at their offense is just better than your defense, and they're winning multiple games like that.
Right, and you know what? This team relies on such a heavy, high-octane offense. It primarily focused on guys like Westbrook, Durant, and Ibaka. Now, if those guys are not on their game, we saw it the other night when Durant had like a so-so fourth quarter. Like it was actually down the line. It was kind of bad to watch.
Yeah,
he was having a really bad shooting night in Game 1, and the Thunder happened to squeak out. I think that game kind of was a little bit closer than they had hoped. In part because Kevin Durant was not shooting the ball well in the fourth quarter. But you know what? They came out on top at the end of the day, in part because Westbrook had a hell of a game, and Enes Kanter was doing what he had to do down low. Exactly like you said, Justice. He was playing the post game really well that game. And that also follows up, and we need to focus also on their bench. Their bench needs to come up big. Guys like Collison and other people off the bench need to make sure that when they have their minutes, if they are getting their minutes, they need to follow through and give the best play possible. Like against this team, the Warriors, who can beat you at multiple spots, and we saw Varejao beat them on the offensive boards last night, or 2 nights ago rather, that he can make you pay. And he'll kick the ball out to one of their 3 shooters in Thompson or Curry, and they'll let it fly, and they will sink those shots, and then you have a 118-98 blowout. Like, that just happens.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the bench, Mills, because if you think about it, the Golden State second unit could be a potential, threat to make the playoffs in 8 seed alone, because you have Sean Livingston, Andre Iguodala, Maurice,
who was their Finals MVP, and multiple All-Star and an Olympic champion coming off the bench.
Yeah, that's almost unfair.
Yeah, that really doesn't make any sense at all.
But the last question I have regarding this series is we've seen the rise of one player and the potential regression of another. And those 2 players being Steven Adams and Serge Ibaka. Steven Adams, 22-year-old Austin kid, has been phenomenal, to say the least, this postseason. He had 6 double-doubles all regular season. He's got 6 in the postseason so far alone. Ibaka, on the other hand, a guy who had great potential coming into the league, fantastic shot blocker. The past year or so he's been moved to the three-point line, and he's been okay, but he hasn't been the Ibaka they expected him to grow into. With that being said, Mills, will start with you this time. Is that a cause of concern, having Ibaka playing the way he has and regressing slowly into a Chris Bosh type of role, but not being as good as Chris Bosh, and it shows?
Well, I think there are 2 things here. First, we cannot discount Steven Adams' great play. Like the guy has been absolutely phenomenal, and what you would think that he would be doing is exactly what we didn't see all season, but now we're seeing in the playoffs. And for Serge Ibaka to kind of, like you said, exactly regress into what we had thought was going to be a really solid player for years to come, and who knew it would be so quick into his career? I don't know. I really don't know. Can I see Serge Ibaka becoming like a bench player? Yeah, I could. He's essentially already been doing that. But like Steven Adams' play has been absolutely phenomenal. He's shooting 61%. He shot in the 2%, for the 2s. His free throws, he's made great free throw attempts, and his percentage is high for a big man in the center. So he's going to get the job done. And if you are Billy Donovan, you're going to play the guys that get the job done.
Honestly, I'm not ready to jump the gun on Serge Ibaka and say he's necessarily regressed. Yeah, he's missed some shots, but I mean they're pretty. He's getting open. He's just not hitting his shots right now. But he has come up big for the Thunder team multiple times this season. He came up a couple times. He came up big for them in the series just before this against the Spurs, where him being able to stretch the floor. The biggest thing about Serge Ibaka is because of his ability to, now that he's been able to knock down this outside shot, he's stretching the floor a lot. He's pulling big men off. He's pulling big men outside of the paint, which opens up the whole court for Westbrook to just run by you, and for Durant to hit you with a shimmy move and go straight to the lane on the cut. And that's what I think is happening to Serge Ibaka. He's being used as a decoy right now. He's just being used as a piece to open up the floor. He's being used to just spread the offense out a little bit how Kevin Love was being used last season for the Cavs, where he wasn't really getting the numbers. He was just kind of on the floor and creating room for LeBron and Kyrie to do their one-on-one thing. I think Serge Ibaka is doing the exact same thing. I'm not going to say he's regressed yet, because the man is very talented. And on the defensive side of the ball, he's a block. He's a stopper. He can get stops. So I don't think Billy Donovan needs to rush and worry. Serge just needs to knock down some shots, and I think he will come up big later on in this series.
My only concern with doing that with players like Serge Ibaka, and he is arguably the best shot blocker in the league, but the problem with bringing a shot blocker out to the three-point arc is that now you're spreading the floor, yes, for other teammates, but he just doesn't seem to be a good fit on the first unit. I feel like if you want to get the maximum impact of Serge Ibaka, imagine him coming off the second unit. I'm not saying it's going to happen because it shouldn't happen in the first place. The guy is a debatable all-star talent. But I feel like with this current Thunder team, they don't need Ibaka taking threes. Even though they need shooters, you shouldn't have your potential for shooting three-pointers unless he's got the ability to spread the floor even more than what he currently is doing. But then again, you can make the good point that Westbrook attacks the rim. You got Adams and Kanter already down low as it is. Durant's going to play that mid-range three-point game, so it's kind of tough for OKC to really see what they could do with Ibaka, and at the same time have somebody like Steven Adams becoming the player they expect him to become. It's just a really weird predicament to have at such a time like the NBA playoffs, where they're still figuring stuff out.
For most teams, I would be worried about this, but the Thunder are a little bit different because they literally have what are like the two best ISO one-on-one players in the league. Like one-on-one, no one's stopping Westbrook, and one-on-one, there's nobody. Well, no one can stop Durant, period. So I think that because they have such high level of isolation players, that Ibaka stretching the floor helps the team a little bit more than hurts them on the offensive side of the ball. Yes, we all like our fours, mid-range, in the paint, getting rebounds, but you're talking about two guys who, if they see daylight, it's over for everybody. Especially with Westbrook being able to just run by anybody. He's so fast, coast to coast, and from the half court line to the baseline, nobody's better at just putting their head down and going straight to the rack at top speed than Westbrook, and especially this season for him. So I think that Ibaka not being there, clogging up that paint with his defender, is helping this team produce wins. It may not be helping Ibaka produce on the stat sheet. It may not be helping Ibaka produce in the plus-minus, but it's helping them produce the W's, and that's all Billy Donovan cares about at the end of the day.
Well, and also this, like, Serge Ibaka is averaging about 3 blocks a game in the playoffs alone in 13 games, which is pretty good. That's pretty good. And the fact that they are playing a team that will make you run out to the perimeter more so than beat you in the paint right now, the fact that he's been doing exactly what you said on the defensive end, even still in this series, he's still coming through on that end. So I can't really knock him. And I now that I think about it, really, Justice, I don't know if I don't think I'm too quick to jump the gun and say that Serge Ibaka is regressing so much in his career. So yeah, very good points.
Now, with that being said, let's go straight from the current talk about superstars to potential superstars, and we're going to be talking about the NBA Draft Lottery. So recently, the lottery has been finalized, and the top 3 picks go to the 76ers, Los Angeles Lakers, and the Boston Celtics in that order, with the last pick from the Celtics being given from the Brooklyn Nets. Recently, There's been a lot of talk. Honestly, you can even go back and say from the first ever draft lottery when the Knicks won in 1985 and got Patrick Ewing, that this draft lottery concept has been rigged from the beginning. And there have been multiple conspiracy theories that are way too long to go into at this point. So I'm just going to get straight to the question. And Justice, I would love your thoughts on this because you are a big basketball head. Is the draft lottery rigged?
I'm not going to go and jump the gun and say it's rigged. I do think the draft lottery is necessary so that teams don't purposely start losing come March when they realize they're not going to get 50 wins. I don't think it's a perfect system the way it's set up. They could definitely tweak it a little bit. I mean, definitely to give it a little bit more fairness. I would say you need to tweak the system. But I think the biggest thing about the draft lottery is that we actually don't see the lottery. We just find out what the results of the lottery are. The lottery happens an hour before the show in a back room with closed doors, and I think that's why everybody thinks it's rigged, because there's no way to actually know what the lottery actually came out as. We just sit and watch the ceremony when they give out all who's got what pick. So therefore, I think that the NBA needs to have a little bit more transparency in that regard, so that we can have a little bit more peace of mind as fans of teams like the Knicks who can't get wins and are always looking for lottery picks, so that they understand just how this pick came about. It's not like they say lottery, but it doesn't look like the lottery because we actually don't see what the results are.
And if we're talking fairness, wouldn't all teams have the same percentage, the same amount of percentage to get the number one pick, regardless of wins? I get the fact that the losing team should probably have a better chance at becoming better teams later on. But if we're talking fairness, then let's face it, the top 3 teams are not being held to the same standards that the other 27 are. So in that regard, do I particularly think that the draft is rigged? No, I don't. Like Justice said, it does happen in a back room an hour before the show, and yeah, that probably does play heavily into the fact of what people think, is it rigged or not. But where we see this conversation in modern times, at least over the past 5 years, become relevant is more so with, well, the Cavaliers. Ever since LeBron left, we know they got Kyrie Irving, then they got Deion Waiters, then they got Anthony Bennett. Like,
they got the pick, but they were really bad. That's why they got the pick.
Right. They got the pick. Right. They got the pick because they were really bad. But what I'm saying is, if we had a system in place, and you pointed it out, and you said maybe the system's broken. If we had a system in place where every single team had an opportunity to get the first pick at the same percentage,
I think that'd be unfair. I think the exact opposite. If the Warriors had a realistic shot at the number 1 pick, I'd say that's absolute nonsense. That would be unfair. Like, there's no way like that could be fair, that the people fighting for the championship have the same opportunity to get future All-Stars as teams that have been awful for the last 7 months.
Right, but wouldn't that set up a system for, like, let's put this in perspective. You mentioned if the Warriors get the number 1 pick right now, like if they had the chance to get the number 1 pick, that number 1 player is probably benched the whole season based on the roster that they have.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Oh, no, sir. Oh, yeah. Let me tell you something right now. If the right talent comes out, this year Karl-Anthony Towns is the number 1 pick. Karl-Anthony Towns would start over Andrew Bogut right now. Right this very second. No questions asked.
As well.
Andrew Bogut would get no burn on the Warriors if he number 1 pick. Andrew Wiggins would take Harrison Barnes' job so quick, and he was the number 1 pick. He would take his job so quick it wouldn't even be a second thought. They would trade Barnes. They would trade him. They'd just be like, "Say, we see what the market will give us for him." They wouldn't even need him.
Yeah, you're probably right, but it opens the door. It opens the door for you to have certain players move even more. And with this league being set up in a way where now we have more super teams being formed. We have the West much stronger than the East. What's the like? I don't see the problem with somebody like Harrison Barnes being traded then, because they want the number 1 pick to start. That essentially evens everything out.
Well, the thing is, regardless of any of the potential trade talks with the West and having equality in the league, which is actually becoming more of a thing now, I think what the draft lottery needs is a visual perspective. We should see what picks are being picked. We should see the golf ball, not the golf balls, the pong balls, in getting picked in order. Because a lot of things have happened recently to me that make it seem like it's a conspiracy. Back with the Bulls, when Chicago got Derrick Rose, they were a very slim pick to get the number 1 pick. The year New Orleans is being sold off, they get Anthony Davis. LeBron in 2003, the Cavs were a terrible team. This could go on for years. And this thing has been happening since the first ever draft when the Knicks got Ewing. It's a flawed system, but it's the best system. Because if we didn't have the system, the Sixers would have the first overall pick for 3 straight seasons. And nobody wants to have a league where teams intentionally tank for years just to build a team. But back to your point, Mills, about having every team in the league being equal for the number 1 pick, that would make it worse. Because if the Warriors win the championship for the 2nd straight year, get the number 1 pick, which would presumably be either Ben Simmons or Brendan Ingram, you're going to have a lineup of Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, potentially Ben Simmons because Harrison Barnes' contract is up at the end of the season, Draymond Green, and Andrew Bogut. That's unfair. It just, to me, it feels like if you're going to try and do a system where the top 15 teams have a chance of getting that number 1 overall pick, the lottery is the best way to do it, but that system just needs to have a little bit tweaking here and there before we can really almost agree on it completely.
I don't really those are great points. Like I have no rebuttal. Like those really are great points. Like that's good. And with like trading of draft picks, I think you might be right that it does even it out. It's it eventually does become somewhat fair. Like Boston has 3 picks in the first round this year.
But that's because Boston managed their team really well and
right.
made sure that they got number 1 picks from a team that wasn't going to be good anyway.
Well,
yeah.
Kudos to Danny Ainge.
It took advantage of Billy King, which is very easy to do.
Yeah, they took a big advantage of Billy King.
Well, and you can bet that they are going to capitalize on every single pick that they make, especially at that number 3 and the number 16 pick, and then they have another one at 23. So they're going to capitalize.
Honestly,
no matter what.
I think this year is going to surprise a lot of people. I think we're going to get a lot of picks being traded this year for pieces already established in the league. And these teams that are looking to rebound, like the Suns and teams like the Pelicans, are going to be the ones trading for these picks to try and get some new talent. Like, I could see the Pelicans trading away Tyreek Evans, Drew Holiday, players like that, Eric Gordon, to try and get one of these top picks to get somebody that can provide them with some fresh offense and some fresh talent on their roster. Because a lot of teams, a lot of the good teams are just, they need 1 or 2 more already established players to get a little bit over the bump. And I think there's going to be a lot of movement this season, more than we've seen in previous seasons.
And, I have to agree, Justice. It's going to be a draft where it's going to be really erratic in terms of nobody knows what's going to happen. The first pick isn't even a guarantee at this point. But with that being said, I think the 2 players or 2 teams we should look out for trades are the Lakers and the Celtics. And the one reason why I would say is for DeMarcus Cousins. The Kings have had the worst luck in the draft lottery the past decade. They've been terrible every single year, but they always get a 5th, 6th, or 8th overall pick. It's just the most unfortunate luck. And with the Celtics having the 3rd overall pick along with 2 of the first rounders, they have a really good advantage to trade those picks with some assets to the Kings so they can potentially start Willie Cauley-Stein, who I think is a potential starting center in this league, and then getting a bunch of wing help. With the Pelicans, you could say the same thing, because minus Anthony Davis, that team is a bunch of injury-prone players, including
They got
Ryan
Ryan.
Anderson.
Nah, Ryan is kind of valid.
He's valid, but he's also very injury-prone. He's in his mid-30s. He's
Yeah,
about
that's
to
true.
exit his prime. And with Drew Holiday and Tyreek Evans not really being sold off starters, and to your point about Gordon, he's a free agent now, so it wouldn't even matter. They might not bring him back, but they need a lot of help as well. So you could see these teams moving up, moving down, a lot of potential.
I think
traded. All I know is
team
that
that's
the
good.
Sixers are going to try and probably do something stupid because that's what they do. But
Not anymore. They hired Jerry Colangelo. He's a basketball genius.
he is a
So
genius. But I
think the Sixers are going to make a lot of trades. They have so many assets, they don't even know what to do with all of them. They got like 3 super centers in Okafor, Nerlens, and Joel. They got
And
players
Zion
from
Saric.
overseas. Their contracts are coming over. They got like 18 picks. The Sixers, and they got a whole lot of money. The Sixers, they have nobody on their books. They got a bunch of D-League All-Stars. Their salary budget is literally nothing. So I think the Sixers, with the number 1 pick, are going to make – I think the Sixers might even move down and try and grab a piece and move Nerlens or Jalil. Maybe move down to the 3 to snag like Ingram or something. And if they know that if they trade that pick, that they're going to take like Simmons, the other team's going to take Simmons or Chris Dunn or something. So
I don't think
it's
Ingram
a
would
lot.
drop a 3.
A lot's going to be up in the air. What?
I don't think Ingram would drop a 3 because the Lakers could definitely use Ingram. He'd be a perfect fit for that team if he was given that ability and chance to get drafted by them.
Well, especially since there's no Kobe Bryant now. Now it's rebuild time for a team like the Lakers.
Not exactly. Yeah. They could easily trade that 2nd pick and some assets for DeMarcus Cousins, which they've been rumored to do, and they can also potentially sign a player like Kevin Durant, who's a free agent after the season. Not saying it's going to happen, but a hypothetical situation, the Lakers could potentially go from a team in rebuilding process to win now. And all 3 of us know that storied franchise is already sick of losing as it is.
Yes.
Oh, no doubt.
Very true.
No doubt.
I mean, the Lakers will bounce back. They are the Lakers. So everybody, you want to play in LA.
I just think that if you're the Lakers right now, you try to get younger first before moving pieces. Like if I was the Lakers, I would draft, like if Ingram or even Simmons are on the board, you draft them.
See, my thing with the Lakers is this. The only reason why I don't think they might not draft, they might move their pick, is because they could go, and especially because the Raptors are getting embarrassed on national TV right now, they could go out and grab DeMar DeRozan, who is an LA guy already coming out of, I think, Compton, right? I think he's from Compton.
Yep, he's from Compton.
Yeah. So he's an LA guy already. He's a star in the league, an all-star. He's a free agent. The Lakers have plenty of money. They're gonna, as soon as you come to LA, there's about $80 million in endorsements being handed right to your face before you even touch a basketball, before you even work on your salary. He's definitely got the superstar quality that LA loves. So they could move their pick away, grab DeMar DeRozan, and try and get some other assets, because there are a lot of guards coming out in the first. There's a lot of ball handlers coming out in the first 5 picks that are supposed to leave, and the Lakers really don't need a ball handler if they go get DeMar DeRozan, because they already have D'Angelo Russell. So they might move down for a big man. You don't know. It's going to be a very interesting offseason this season.
The Lakers could technically do this. If all goes well, which is not, they could easily trade that pick for DeMarcus Cousins. They could sign DeMar DeRozan, and then they could already win games now as it is. That's how crazy this draft is. You have so many options with these teams. And even though I said the Sixers have been pretty much stupid the past few years, like you said, Justice, the Colangelos could easily turn that franchise around with so many trade assets. So potentially these top 5 picks and these top 5 teams could easily become playoff teams next year. It's that insane of a draft where the impact of the pick and trade could turn a season around by 10 or 15 wins. And that's what makes the NBA so good nowadays compared to the 90s, where you had 3 good teams and the rest were terrible. even though we have 4 championship teams arguably in the league now, the rest of the pack is very close in parity.
I don't know if I want to say any different from the 90s. Even when we were watching basketball back in the 90s, they were the top 4 or 5 teams in the league. They were the average teams that could upset those teams. And then they were the trash teams, like the Knicks. So, I mean, the NBA... No, well, the Knicks are bad, so I'm going to be honest. So, you know, I think in that regard, the NBA is, you know, the NBA is just doing as it always does, and the talent is balancing itself out as always and trying to put a good product on the court for us to watch as fans. But I think that this year's off season is going to be probably the most interesting off season since that year LeBron went to Miami. Because there's so much talent available to be moved and to be drafted all at one time, and everybody in the league has money now. It's not a matter of who can afford somebody. Everybody, the league is flourishing with these new TV deals. The Spurs have enough money to sign Kevin Durant. That's how crazy it is. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I agree with all those points. That, you know, we have, obviously there is a lot more money available to teams now than there was 20 years ago, because we're in a profitable age where TV is running the show. The average American watches about 35 hours a week of TV. I'm assuming that a real good amount of time for that is towards their sports and their entertainment, their leisure time. So let's put that into perspective. You're absolutely right. The more money that is involved in TV deals, especially with now starting the 2017-2018 season, they're going to have the labels on the jerseys. Even more money to the league.
Now, we're running out of time here, so let's talk about one more topic, and then we'll call it a podcast. NBA head coaching jobs. There have been a lot of moves recently, a lot of firings, a lot of hires. Now, I want to get from each one of you guys, what do you think has been the best coaching move and the worst coaching move so far this offseason? Justice, you go first.
The best coaching hire obviously has to be Frank Vogel. I don't know why he chose to go to Orlando, which makes it very interesting, because Frank Vogel literally had the pick of where he wanted to go between the Rockets, the Knicks. Everybody was calling. Teams with a coach already were calling Frank Vogel, because he's been proven to be one of the premier coaches in the league. You could argue he was a top 5 coach in the league this season. So I think that it's very interesting that he decided to go to Orlando. He obviously sees something in the talent that they have down there, which didn't produce in the last 2 seasons, but he obviously thinks he can turn that around. I think the Knicks made a great decision in hiring Jeff Hornacek. I think Jeff Hornacek is I think he was wrongly fired from Phoenix. They fired him for losing, but they traded all his best players away. They traded Dragic away. They traded Isaiah Thomas away. And then Eric Bledsoe hasn't been healthy for a full season for the last 3 years. And he still has these guys knocking on the playoff door every single time. So I don't know why he lost his job. He's going to come to New York, and I think he's going to do a great job, especially with Porzingis. I think that I think those two are going to be a great fit for each other. Even though Hornacek has been a guard-heavy coach, I just think that the personalities fit. Hornacek's personality, Porzingis' personality, they mesh well. And I know Melo respects Jeff Hornacek, which is key, because Carmelo Anthony is a superstar already. He's not going to play for a coach that he doesn't respect as much, like a Mike Woodson. He didn't really respect Mike Woodson, but he didn't really respect Derek Fisher all that much, especially because he was just playing against Derek Fisher 3 years ago. So I really think that the fact that he has a lot of respect for Hornacek coming out of the Jerry Sloan system, I think that's going to help the Knicks a lot. I think that's a crucial hire. And now I'm just waiting to see what the heck the Rockets do, because they have fired Kevin McHale, who was a great coach, and then now they can't win games. So I just don't know. I just don't know what to tell them.
I think the best and worst move actually involves the same coach, and it is Frank Vogel. for the Pacers to let him go, like, to Orlando, which for him, obviously, Justice has a great point. He sees something in Orlando that he feels he can turn the team around and take them to places that these particular players haven't been yet. But on the flip side, the Pacers, this is a team that was competing for an Eastern Conference championship. That they had made the playoffs 5 out of the 6 seasons that he was there. Like, overall, pretty successful. That's a pretty successful head coach, and for him to be let go by the organization to go to Orlando, it's like, now you're going to deal with that. You got to now the Pacers got to find something, and they got to make sure that the handling of their stars and Paul George, amongst others, are going to be consistent as Frank Vogel was. On the other side, just to play devil's advocate here, I do think Kevin McHale is a great coach, and I'm a little bit surprised that the Knicks didn't go after him. The way he handled Harden and Dwight Howard, I thought was pretty decent. I mean, you can't detract somebody from their personalities on the court totally, but I do think that he did put a lot of effort into that team and did get them back to where the Rockets thought they were going to be back when they played back when they had Yao Ming. Like that team had a lot of potential, and now we see the Rockets in a position that they're in limbo, and they're not sure what they're going to do.
Under Kevin McHale, to your point about Kevin McHale, under Kevin McHale, the Rockets won 55 games, were in the Western Conference Finals last year. The team didn't lose anybody, and they got bodied in the first round, and only got into the playoffs because the Utah Jazz lost to Kobe Bryant on his 60-point night on the last game of the season.
Yeah,
that's the only reason why the Rockets made the playoffs in the first place. Now, so I think that they wrong to fire Kevin McHale, and I'm really, really curious what on earth they're gonna do going forward. That's gonna be very, especially because Dwight Howard has got 1 foot already out the door. I don't think he wants to play there with James Harden anymore. I don't think he's having fun playing basketball anymore. They're not getting him the ball in the paint anymore. He's a big man who's a 7-footer. And he touches the ball 3 times in the paint unless he gets his own putback. So say what you want about Dwight Howard, but he's a lot better than 8 points a game in the playoffs, and we all know this.
Well,
Gio, chime in on this one.
To go back, well, first off, to answer the question I asked, I'm going to disagree with both of you. I think Tom Thibodeau is the best hire so far this offseason.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Wow. Does that count as an offseason? Did that happen in the offseason?
And the reason I'm saying him is because, let's face it, without Thibodeau, the Bulls, the same squad, with a more up-tempo offensive system, struggled. Didn't make the playoffs. Thibodeau is a defensive wizard. We can all agree he's arguably the best defensive coach in the league. You already got a bunch of young and upcoming talent in Karl-Anthony Towns, Andrew Wiggins, Zach LaVine. You got Rubio already there. A ton of talent. Potentially Chris Dunn if they draft the right guard. I think Chris Dunn would be a good fit for them. But you bring in a guy who's a defensive wizard. You got all this young talent that Thibodeau could, overplay, because one of the big cons against him is he overuses his players, which I understand that point, but he's got the ability to hone a young team full of potential superstars into a group of hard, gritty defenders, and they could compete as early as this year. So just to play devil's advocate, I go with Thibodeau as the best hire. Worst decision made, it's unanimous. What are the Rockets doing? Now, I think the firing of McHale was very premature, but I don't think he'd be a good fit for the Knicks, mainly because Kevin McHale is a post-move type of guy. And the Knicks brought in Hornacek for one reason, because Kristaps Porzingis would not be a post player. Because I know at Rambis they wanted to make Porzingis a post player, but the guy is a potential Dirk 2.0 who can shoot threes at a 7'3" frame. Hornacek's offensive system gave 3 reasons the Knicks hired him. Fast breaks, 3-point shots, up-tempo speed. The Knicks were terrible in fast breaks. They couldn't shoot threes, and they couldn't move the ball. With this system in place, and with players like Kristaps Porzingis, Melo, potentially some free agent guards, because let's face it, they need guards, they could easily be a top 10 offense next year if they make the right offseason moves with Hornacek. And he's given more talent on this Knicks roster alone than the Suns had. And he took that Suns team and won 54 games in a Western Conference where the team won 25 the previous year. Hornacek's a great coach. And I'm going to go more into that in my article for the website, so I'm not going to go into much detail, but the Rockets are a lost cause. James Harden is the franchise player, but James Harden shoots 40 times a game, and he plays no defense. So potentially bringing Mike D'Antoni as a coach, you're going to have James Harden score 50 points and give up 65. I don't see why you would I get the point. D'Antoni is potentially the reason why the offense in the NBA is at where it's at right now. But the guy can't coach defense, and he's been terrible his past 2 coaching stints.
I want to give D'Antoni some credit. He did invent a pretty cool offense for basketball. Once again, that offense did not win anything.
No.
Nothing. Not a single, not any trophies whatsoever. I mean, Steve Nash got MVP, but that's because he shot 50, 40, 90. So I don't know what the Rockets want to do with D'Antoni. And going back to touch on your Frank Vogel comments earlier, Mills, I don't like him getting fired, but I don't question Larry Bird when it comes to basketball.
He wasn't fired. He was let go. His contract.
Let go. Yeah, but I don't question Larry Bird at all in any basketball decision ever. That man knows what he's doing. And he hired Nate McMillan, who was the assistant coach. Nate McMillan is a good coach. He's done some previous stints before. I think he coached Portland. It was Trailblazers, right?
Yep.
He coached Portland when they had that run with Brandon Roy, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that was him. So I don't think it was a bad decision on his part necessarily. And sometimes what can really change a team around is just a fresh voice in the locker room. Just a fresh guy that you're not 100% comfortable with, who can just whip the boys into shape. And I think that's what Larry Bird was looking for.
Yeah, maybe 6 years was too long for a guy like Vogel in the Pacers system. We'll have to see what happens with that. Like McMillan's probably going to bring in something fresh to the table.
Well, one more point I want to make before we end the podcast about Vogel is the reason why I think he went to Orlando is because Vogel is fantastic with player development. He took Solomon Hill and he made him relevant. So I rest my case on Vogel's player development. And with Scott Skiles in Orlando, the problem with Scott Skiles is that he's a good defensive coach, but he needs a team that's ready to win now. And Orlando's got a ton of young and upcoming talent that needs to be groomed. So now you bring in a guy like Frank Vogel, who took so many role players that were already established in their primes and made them into a solid conference final potential team. So now you're going to bring him in with Nikola Vucevic. Oladipo is still a work in progress, and I think he's got potential to still be a good player. Elfrid Payton, who even though he's got no jump shot, with Vogel under his wing, he could be a much improved version of what George Hill should have been under that system. That team's got a lot of talent, including Aaron Gordon. That guy is still a work in progress. He's 20 years old. You give Frank Vogel a year or two to work with that team, and they get one more lottery pick, they could contend for the 8th seed in 2017, 2018.
I mean, it's not hard to compete for the 8th seed in the East. And honestly, if you want to be honest, I think that's what the Magic thought were going to happen for them this season with the lineup that they had with Oladipo and Payton and Hezonja and Vucevic playing like the star that he's playing and Dedmon coming on to be a nice addition to their front court. I think that's what the Magic were looking for, and they just did not get that with Skiles this year. So Frank Vogel, we know he's a great coach, and I hope to see him in the playoffs because, quite frankly, I'm rooting for Orlando. They haven't been good since Shaq left, honestly. Oh, well, since Dwight left. They were good with Dwight. Yeah, I'm bugging. Since Dwight left.
And with that being said, that's going to be the end of this week's ATE podcast. I want to thank Mills and Justice for talking this week. Great show as always, and looking forward to next week, which could be any topic because it's still up in the air. So if you guys have any suggestions about what we should talk about next week, which will be Fridays at 8 p.m., either tweet at us at ATE Bosses or our own personal Twitters, Facebook us, Instagram us, anywhere you want to reach us. But minus that, I want to thank you all once again for tuning in, and we hope to see you guys next week. Take care.
Adios.